It's nice.
Now I can't even, oh, there you are.
Oh, wait a minute. Here's something that's upside down. Hold on. Let me see if I can fix this. Okay, no, that's not it.
Why don't you press on Zoom, and they usually have somebody who will give you instruction and say what's wrong, and maybe they'll help you. You know, the Zoom thing that's on the bottom right, that's got the little camera or whatever.
Yeah.
Press on that, and then they ask, do you need help? It says, do you need help?
I don't see that on mine.
Why don't you
Wait, if you
stop
can.
video and start again and see if that helps?
I did that.
Oh, all right, whatever. Okay, so
I think you still look good.
I'm just gonna give one more minute for people to show up because we have a lot of people coming and my phone is ringing, but I'm ignoring that. And certain people have not shown their faces. I'd love to see Susan Gordon, Robert Phelps, Jessica, Marubi. I'd love to see you all if you feel like revealing yourself. This is my home phone, which is always like telemarketers or something. So.
We just disconnected our home phone. This is the most exciting thing ever. We're done.
Well, hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning. It's midday, whatever we say. Good.
Hello.
Yeah, bonjour. Hi.
All of that.
Very interesting topic, I think, for today, which is Musar. Now, Musar is a 1,000-year-old Jewish spiritual practice that most people have not heard of, but has been around for a really long time. Became very big in the 19th century, but it still existed before that. And literally, the word Musar means correction or instruction, but it really is about a way to have meaning and depth to your life and to improve your character. And this, it's practiced now, and there are a number of websites after we, talk today that you can look on for more information. And there's a fantastic book that I'll be referring to that you can get on, buy at Amazon. I'm sure it's paperback, very cheap. That is about Musar today. This teacher and professor and Musar master, in a way, named Alan Marinis, studied it for several years and then wrote a wonderful book called Everyday Holiness, which gives you a day by day or week by week way to practice Musar. So I wanted to just give you a little history of what it is first. It appeared in the medieval times in the 10th century, where this rabbi, Sadia Gaon, who's pretty famous, was concerned about people's behavior, that, and this is also the idea all the way through, that, we can be following the mitzvot and not be good people. That being a mensch, as we talked about in the very beginning, there's a very famous quote by one of the great sages saying, it's good to be holy, but first be a mensch. And it's important to be a mensch first. And this is talking about how to refine ourselves, improve ourselves, deepen ourselves, and live a more meaningful life. One of the 11th century sages named Ibn Pakuda, they were Sephardic. I find it very interesting. This was all in the medieval times in either the Middle East or in Spain, where it was a very high level of philosophy going on. And rediscovery of even ancient Greek philosophy, that people had the time, because if you think about it, they weren't being persecuted. There were a lot of wealthy, educated people. And that's when you start to have that time to really think about not just surviving, but actually living something on a more meaningful level. He called it, Ibn Pakuda, I love this, the science of inner life. How to improve your inner life. And there are practices, and there's a prescription of how to do that. And he said that everything that you do in life starts with your inner life of your heart. In other words, our actions are all motivated by our thoughts, our emotions, and maybe most importantly, our intentions, because it's our intentions. We need to work on ourselves. Nobody's perfect. And so this was about how to refine our soul, deepen ourselves, but not just to make our lives better, but also the object of Musar was to be a lamp or a light to the world. And there's a famous quote or story that it's, I've heard it alluded to two different great rabbis, the Chafetz Chaim or Rabbi Israel Salanter, who's the founder of the modern Musar movement. But he said, when I was young, I wanted to change the world. So I tried to change the world and it didn't work. Then I thought I'd try to change my town. So I tried to change my town, but it didn't work. So then I thought I'd try to change my family. So I spent time trying to change my family, but it didn't work. Finally, I realized that the only person I could change was myself. So I changed myself and it affected my family and the people around me. And I realized if I had started with myself, I could have changed my family, changed my town, and perhaps changed the world. So it's about you starting with yourself and how there are ripple effects in the world and to the people around you. So for centuries, this Musar movement was kind of like the Kabbalah in that it was secret, it wasn't popular, and it was a personal private practice that individuals did, but there was no movement, there was no school. Until the 19th century in Lithuania, where Rabbi Israel Salanter, who was a Musar practitioner and student and teacher, decided to broaden it. And why? Because in the middle of the 19th century, we're talking about mid-1800s, Jews were scattering and fragmenting on a scale even more, well, maybe like today or even more, because first of all, there was the oppression from the Tsar that was taking and driving Jews away. There was communism, socialism, this new movement called Zionism, and then the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was finally when Jews were allowed to enter professions and go to university, and the young people were leaving Orthodox Judaism in droves to go and be educated, to go out into the world and become even secular. And so Rabbi Salanter said there has to be a branch of Judaism that applies to all of us, that unites all of us. That doesn't matter how religious you are or not. I mean, he was an Orthodox rabbi, but he was more concerned with teaching a Jewish way of spirituality and refinement and ethical behavior that crossed all borders and all boundaries. So that was what he did. And he actually codified the practices of Musar. And he talked about, which we're going to look at. Did everybody get the worksheet? If you didn't, it would be good to have a pen or pencil around to write something down, because we're going to do a little self-analysis of our midot. A midah is a soul trait. He said there were 13 traits of the soul, and you needed to work on them one at a time over a certain amount of time. You couldn't do them all at once. So he talked about this discipline of how to work on your soul traits. But he also talked about a really interesting concept that psychologists or perhaps, I guess Jung would call it, your.
Susan,
Yes,
Susan,
yes. 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 What, Miriam? What happened?
Marv,
Are you okay? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So he talked about what's it called? The Jungian idea of the shadow self. Okay, so we call it in Hebrew the Yetzer Hara, or the dark side, or the evil inclination. And in Musar, there's this understanding that there is the opposite, the evil inclination. I don't know why this keeps doing this. Evil inclination that will try to thwart you when you want to work on yourself. You say, I'm going to work on patience. And you're working on patience, and then your Yetzer Hara, your evil inclination, you'll say, oh my God, this is disgusting. Why are you waiting? They're terrible. You know, it'll urge you to become impatient, to become mean, to snap out. Or, I mean, the one I think of, it's not on here, but like we know when we're dieting, and then sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's ourselves. One bite's not going to hurt. Okay, I'll start tomorrow. And you never get there. That's considered your Yetzer Hara. It's part of your psyche. You know, it's not an outside devil or anything. It is your psyche, but it's that inclination. And in Musar, if you know that's what it is, then when it shows up, instead of just listening to it, you could say, oh, there's the Yetzer Hara. There's the evil inclination trying to tempt me, but I'm not going to listen to it. Just naming it sometimes and recognizing it helps you combat it. So, he also believed that every person needed their own specific curriculum, so to speak, of what to work on, because we all have different weaknesses and we all need to work on, we all have different strengths. And so what he did was he started teaching this, and then in yeshivas and yeshivot all over Lithuania, it spread to teach Musar. Musar was part of study, like Torah study, there was Musar study. Oh, another reason he wanted Musar is he said the Hasidic movement had become too picayune, too much about the law and not about.
Oh, very small, not where I was. And she's talking and talking, and I can't hear one word she's saying. A picture's back in.
Sorry, she can't hear. It's a shame. Okay.
I can try to.
Of course, I'm unmuted, but I also don't have.
Miriam, I could hear you.
I have no audio whatsoever.
No,
I suggest you mute everybody, and
I
if she
can't
could,
do it. Don, you want to mute people?
Now you're muted.
I'm not muted now, correct? Everybody
Right.
like that? Okay.
We had to unmute you.
All right, good. Okay, so, and it became a pretty wide practice across Lithuania, perhaps Poland, but then most of the Musar teachers were killed in the Holocaust, and it fell into, disuse or no more study. And then it became revived, particularly by this guy, Alan Marinis, for modern people in this book. Here's the book. Everyday Holiness. Does it look backwards to you or just to me? Everyday Holiness by Alan Marinis, Morinis.
Suze,
Yes.
was this done in lieu of Torah?
No, it was additional.
Additional, okay.
Additional. And in my rabbinical school, we had Musar. And when I started rabbinical school, I had no idea what it was. I had no idea. And I'd never heard of it. And we would meet in groups of just 5 or 6 students at a time. You don't have it as a class. You work with a small group that you trust, and you pick a different soul trait each week. And we would read about it and study about it. And we would share our vulnerabilities and our problems and our struggle with the different soul traits and how we were working on them. So it was really like group therapy on a spiritual level for 1,000 years, So I just want to tell you.
Susan, before you go on, sorry, maybe you said it earlier, I apologize, but what does Musar mean?
Musar means, literally it means instruction or correction. But really, today we call it ethics, spiritual ethics, the science of the inner mind, the science of the inner soul. It's about, but literally it means correction or instruction. That's what it means. Okay, so,
Rabbi,
yes,
can I ask a question?
of course.
So when I was reading this, the first thing that came to mind is the similarity to Aristotle's ethics.
Okay. Yes.
And so the cross-fertilization of Western ideas and Jewish ideas, of course, then it makes me want to like explore more. But so you have this chart, you know, on the scale of 1 to 10, and where to find the right balance, which reminds me of Aristotle's golden mean. So is there a concept then in Judaism with this Musar about finding the right mean?
Yes. There's
No,
balance.
forgive
You
me.
want to be balanced, exactly, like the golden
Take
mean.
it all out.
Not too much and not too little. You want to be you want to try to have the balance, because either way brings out negative traits like humility. If you're balanced, you're humble, but you know your worth. If you have too little humility, you're arrogant, and you can end up being controlling and unsympathetic. If you have if you have too much humility, you can end up being abused.
Right.
You know, and
So is the goal then to be at 5 rather than 1 or at 10?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's
And hearing the
whatever.
sound.
There's no, okay. So, and as I
Oh,
mentioned,
hi, dear. How are you, Denise? It's very Malcolm.
Oh, God.
Hi, sweetheart. Listen, I'm bothering you again.
gotta
but
like
I'm on.
mute
I thought I was
Miriam,
Susan.
Don,
Mute everybody.
or mute Miriam, because we're hearing her make phone calls.
Everybody else is listening, and I can't hear one word she's saying.
Can you? Can you mute Miri? Thank you. Okay. You are muted. I'm on. All right. Everybody, to unmute yourself, you will do that when you want to speak, because we're going to speak in a minute. I wanted to read you a list of some of the books and that were written over the centuries. Oh no, I wanted to go back to Roy's comment. I think because the Sephardic, Spanish, and Arabic rabbis were the ones to originate Musar, and we know that, like, Maimonides was certainly reading Aristotle and reading the classics, that they probably were too, and exchanging ideas, and it probably evolved from that enlightened point of view into a Jewish version of that, of this ethical living. So I just want to read you like a couple of these topics, because over the ages, you see exactly what they focused on. So the first book that we're talking, there was a book written in 1542 in Germany called The Ways of the Righteous, written in Yiddish, and it had a cooking analogy to describe a person's spiritual makeup, prompting many to speculate it was written by a woman, because she talked about cooking ingredients. So that's a book that was published in 1542 about Musar. And then in the 16th century, in Safat, Israel, there's a very famous book that still you can get called Tomer Devorah, The Palm Tree of Deborah. And it's a mystical approach to Musar that speculates how our personal choices reverberate in the cosmos, that what we do here affects the whole universe. So that was and Safat was the, the place where Kabbalah originated. So, or certainly took hold. Then in 1740 in Amsterdam, there was a book called The Path of the Just by Moses Chaim Luzzatto, who wrote a specific guide of what to do. And you have to, he said that rabbinic students and rabbis have to focus more on their own personal conduct and less on.
It's on the side. It's on the, yes.
You gotta.
How do I answer that chat? There's no way.
Can't hear you now.
You're muted now.
The minutia of the Talmud is more important, less important than your own personal conduct. To say that about rabbis at that time, when the Talmud was the thing, was pretty radical. Then in 1812 in the Ukraine, there was a book called Cheshbon HaNefesh. What's interesting is we're talking about Musar in Safat, Israel, Amsterdam, Lithuania, Germany, and now the Ukraine. And this was the first book with a daily practice, like exactly what you should do every day in order to cheshbon nefesh means, accounting, looking at your soul, counting your soul. Then there was a book in 1824 in Constantinople about practical advice how to overcome like your bad habits. And it was for poor people and rich people, like swearing, bad sleep, bad behavior in marriages or whatever. So it was a practical thing. And then in Lithuania, the one we talked about of Rabbi Israel Salanter was called Or Yisrael, the Light of Israel. So we see that over the centuries, Musar and this idea that, following the minutia of the mitzvahs and the halacha of the law was not important as improving our own personal behavior. So now, if you have a paper and pencil, or you have the list that I sent out. If you don't have it, it's okay. I'm gonna read it to you. I want you to grade yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, where each midah, each soul trait, I would say 5 is like you're right in the middle. So how many of us are perfect? I don't think many. So let's just talk about them one at a time, so we can write them down, and then let's talk about them for a minute, and then we'll talk about the different practices and how you work on them one at a time. So the first one is humility. Who has one of these on them? I'd love somebody else to read them. Okay, Risa, unmute yourself. Why don't you read humility?
Okay, you can share the thing,
I don't know how to do that. I'll have to look.
Just all you have to do is pull it up on your computer and then hit the share screen that's green.
Yeah,
But I'll read humility.
okay.
Humility is knowing your proper place in the world and acting accordingly. Too little humility leads to arrogance, and too much humility leads to self-abasement.
So everybody grade yourself on humility. Okay. Who would like to read the next one? Okay, Claudia, unmute yourself.
So the next one is patience. Patience governs our ability to bear the burden of an uncomfortable situation. Too little patience leads to anger and frustration. Too much patience leads to inaction and a fatalistic attitude.
Okay, so
What are the grades from 1 to 10, Susan?
1 to 10, where are you on the scale? 1 means you have none or almost no patience. 10 means you're so patient that you don't even act. You just sit there and go, well, what can I do? Okay. The next one is enthusiasm. Who would like to read enthusiasm? Okay, Merle.
Enthusiasm is the energy that drives us to positive, mindful action. Too little enthusiasm leads to laziness and apathy. Too much enthusiasm leads to rash decisions and frantic busyness.
Great. So grade yourselves. So the good thing about this is you can all see it. The bad thing is I can't see all of you. So I'm gonna ask different people let me see, how can I do this?
You can do it by putting gallery, clicking on gallery to the.
No, gallery won't do it on top of a share.
Okay.
No,
Who would like
Susan, just hit the word participants at the bottom of your screen and you'll have on the right-hand
Oh,
side
you're
a
right.
complete list.
Yeah. Okay.
It's there.
All right. Who would like to read trust? If you do, just read it.
I'll read it. And you
Okay.
can do gallery view on top of your thing, because I have it. So just press gallery view and you'll see some of the people. Anyhow, trust is trusting in God or the universe that whatever happens, things will be okay. Too little trust leads to fear and worry. Too much trust can lead to recklessness and irresponsibility.
Okay, so where are you on trust, everybody? Because then we're going to talk about what, one thing we would like to work on. Okay, loving kindness or chesed, one of my favorites.
I'll do it.
Okay,
Loving kindness leads to selfless acts to help others without reward. Too little loving kindness leads to selfishness and cruelty. Too much loving kindness leads to excessive doting and a lack of self-care.
Great. Okay. Oh, Don, you're great. You're moving it up. Okay, chesed. Beautiful. Yeah, too much loving kindness is when you always put yourself last. You don't take care of yourself. And too little is when you only take care of yourself. Okay, truth. Who wants to do truth? Somebody. Unmute yourself if you want to do it. Peg.
Unmute. Okay. Truth covers both our ability to avoid falsehood and to appreciate other people's perspectives, or also known as their truths. Too little truth means that we're dishonest. Too much truth may lead to unkind words.
Yeah, like you tell somebody something very bluntly, where they don't need to hear it. And, the rabbis talk about that, especially there's a great debate in the Talmud between Hillel and Shammai, Hillel being the more lenient of the rabbi leading the Sanhedrin at that time, and Shammai more by the book to the letter. And they argue about, can you sing this song at a wedding that says, here comes the beautiful bride, if the bride's not beautiful? And Shammai says, you cannot sing this song. But Hillel says, yes, you sing this song. But I thought his answer it was an interesting answer. It wasn't like, you don't want to hurt her feelings. But he said, what's the point of telling somebody after they bought something that it's no good?
Exactly.
That's how he explained it. There's no point. So, okay. Jeff, do you want to read one? Honor? But unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Jeff. Okay.
Honor covers how we treat and think about others. Too little honor leads to rude and judgmental behavior. Too much honor leads to flattery and obsequiousness.
Yes. That's like people who
fawn over each other.
Or I think about, in Hollywood, if you're nobody, they don't want to know you, or they're your best friend as long as you're successful. And then when you're not, they don't even know who you are. It's, they don't honor people for their worth, but for what they can get from them or how it reflects on them. Okay, gratitude. Somebody else, because I can't see you all, who would like to read? Somebody just.
I'll read gratitude.
Okay.
Gratitude. Gratitude governs our ability to recognize the good in any situation. Too little gratitude can lead to depression and paralysis. Too much gratitude stifles action and energy to address injustice or personal danger.
So it's interesting, in Hebrew, the word for gratitude is hakarat hatov, which means recognizing the good. And this particular thing, I think I mentioned it last week. I'm not sure if I talked to a few groups, but it might have been this group, about the fact that thousands of Hasidic Jews who had the coronavirus, their rabbis told them, and they agreed to go and donate their blood plasma to the hospitals. And they did so in New York and New Jersey. Thousands of them donated their blood plasma. It was on the front page of the New York Times. And they said, it's our mandate to find something good in this terrible tragedy. We have to find the good. And so this is the good that we suffered, we lost people, but we have the plasma, we're going to donate it to help others.
But didn't they refuse to social distance, and that's why so many got it?
Yes, probably a lot. Yes, they unfortunately suffered from that and learned from that. But in the end, they tried to make something good out of what they did, which was, they needed some Musar for that. Okay, order. Who wants to do order? Just somebody read.
Order is the soul trait that gives structure to our lives. Too little order leads to chaos and disarray. Too much order can become obsessive and controlling, which limits freedom.
Yes, so some people, they don't care and they just let things go, and other people are like so controlling. That's obvious. So where are you in your order? Midah, your order soul trait. Okay, somebody else. How about Robert? I don't see you, but I know you're there. You want to read silence? Because you're being silent.
Given what you just said, it seems like it's the perfect one for me to read. Silence is the trait that governs when we talk and when we do not. Too little silence produces hurtful speech. Too much silence is a lost opportunity to bring good into existence.
That's true. I mean, it's like some people, they don't thank people, they don't express appreciation. There's some silences that actually can be hurtful when you don't say anything. I was just reading something this morning about in the new, a little article about relationships, and this woman, she has an Asian mother and she's 23 and she has a brother who's 11. And she was watching her mother like praise and cuddle with her brother. And she said, how come you didn't do that with me? And her mother said, I regret two things about when I raised you. One is that I didn't come to your recitals because I was so tired from work. And one, that I didn't tell you enough how much you mean to me. And the daughter just got very moved and felt healed in some way. And the mother said, I'm trying to do better the second time around. So sometimes not saying anything can be very hurtful to somebody if we're too silent. Okay, equanimity.
I'll do equanimity.
Okay.
Equanimity is the sole trait that governs whether you keep your cool or lose your head. Too little equanimity leads to an emotional roller coaster, feeling super excited or really down. Too much equanimity can lead to a lack of engagement and ambivalence.
Right. So right now, I think it's very hard to have our equanimity during this time. We're emotional, afraid, upset, whatever. Everything is thrown back on us and amplified. Okay, fear.
Here, I'll do fear.
Okay.
Fear is short for fear of consequences. Too little fear leads to capricious, reckless, or brash behavior. Too much fear leads to risk aversion and an extreme reluctance to leave the comfort zone.
Yeah, you can be afraid to take chances, or you can, say, I don't care, I'm doing it anyway. I'm going to that bar during the coronavirus and I'm sitting next to everybody and I'm breathing in their face. Breathe in mine. I don't know. There are people doing that. Okay. And the last one is awe. Who would like
do that one?
Okay.
Awe is defined as referential respect with an element of dread or wonder. With too little awe, we become self-centered and cynical. With too much awe, we become disconnected with the world.
Okay, great. Okay, Don, can you take this off now so I can see everyone again? Beautiful. So take a look at your lists. And if you would like to share, I mean, I know right now, the one that I have the heart, I mean, I'm flawed in many ways, but my worst is patience. I'm just, I'm terrible. And my daughter sometimes says, I can't drive with you. You're making me anxious. You're driving me crazy, because I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? Why is it, it's terrible. And so I know that would be my very first one, because it makes me miserable as well as everybody else. So who would like, anyone, not obliged.
Wouldn't that be fear?
What?
Wouldn't that be fear, Susan? You're anxious,
No, I make the anxious is another one, yes, but it makes my daughter anxious. Yeah. When I don't know if it's fear as much as it just agitates her. It gives her agita.
No, I was talking about what you have, which is what makes you in the car go,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all. That what your behavior in the car, does it come out of fear?
No, it comes out of, I want to get there already.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Or people are, terrible drivers, or I don't know. Who knows what that is? You're right. There's a deeper level that I have to look at. That's what Musar is about. Does anyone want to share their trait yes, Merle.
I think my worst one is equanimity because I'm over anal. But then it goes down to a lot of them because I get frustrated with myself for being over anal.
That's interesting. Okay, good. All right.
I'm like in the middle of all of them because I kind of go back and forth depending on what's going on in my life at that moment.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Those people who have the extremes are going to be called OCD. And that trait in and of itself amplifies and magnifies all extremes, both good and bad, of these traits.
That could be
The lack of
Correct.
tolerance, the lack of patience, the lack of equanimity, all
what
of
are yours,
these
Jeff?
things. I scored 100 on every point.
Meaning you had a 5 for everything, you were a 5?
No, I was an
a
8.
10.
It was
An
10.
8 or a 10.
Especially humility.
Humility and humble, that's not in my vocabulary, unfortunately.
Okay.
So my understanding though was that too much of something is bad and too little. So you really want to have 5s on everything.
Right.
Right.
So what you're looking at is like, where are your 10s and where are your 1s?
Exactly. But
I don't think anybody could qualify in that way because all of us
I didn't say that.
have deep-seated traits that nullify the ability to remain in that neutral zone.
That's true. That's what, okay, yes, Barbara.
Thank you. I not only took it last night, but I gave my husband Richard a blank copy to do on me.
Yeah.
And we both came up with the same 2 that weren't right around the middle for me. One
And
was
you're
that,
still married?
I beg your pardon.
And you're still married?
I hope so, unless he did something, didn't tell me. The 2 that we both came up with for me was patience was on the low end and fear was on the high end. And all the other ones were, 5, 6, that type of thing.
Okay,
So
good.
it's interesting.
It is interesting. Who else wants to share? Abby?
Yeah, for me, I think it's trust because of how I was brought up and things that have happened in my life.
Interesting. Okay. Anyone else want
Yeah.
to share? Robert?
I think this is absolutely brilliant. And I think that as I look at this, I feel like any extreme on any of these characteristics could describe me in different slices of time. And it just is it crystallizes the dilemma of living, and like we're all on a tightrope to try to navigate ourselves and our circumstances to stay on the path. Right now, I think to deal with the pandemic, I live by myself, and I find that I've kind of gone into hibernation to just kind of like cope, and I think so. I would say like right now, enthusiasm is a little lower than it should be. I went swimming yesterday. They opened the beaches, and that really was like, oh my God, there's a world out here.
Yeah.
So that's on my mind now. But this, I'm absolutely blown away at all of the wisdom that flows out of these scholars, Jewish scholars. And when did you say he did this?
This started in 1000 AD, 1000 CE, 1,000 years ago, but it was codified really well in the mid 1800s.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
amazing.
Talia.
Oh, hi. Okay. So my only 10, which is not good, is enthusiasm.
Oh.
Because it gets me in trouble.
Okay.
And the close second to that was loving kindness, 9.5. And then not good. And my only 5s that I had were honor and gratitude. And my lowest was humility with a close second of equanimity.
Interesting. So we have our things. So I want to know, oh wait, Risa, didn't you want to share?
Yeah.
Where are you?
Well, where am I?
There you are.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, patience absolutely is the problem.
Yes.
And it's patience with other people. That's where I get into trouble with anger and frustration. Other people are not doing it the way I would do it.
Lack
Cheryl,
of
do you wanna say
humility.
anything?
Terrible.
Lack of humility.
Wait, hold
Right
on,
there.
Cheryl, did you want to
Yeah,
say something? You're
I
nodding.
couldn't find where tolerance is. That's the word I'm struggling with through this whole thing.
What did you say? I didn't hear.
Tolerance and acceptance that, of humanity. People are so strange and different now and shocking me every day. Where's tolerance?
Would that be humility?
I guess, no.
I would say it's in loving kindness.
Equanimity, or you're right. Tolerance is not on here.
I think it's a combo of like trusting and
Netzach,
let's see.
endurance and victory.
I guess honor,
And patience and
truth, letting people have their truth, but it's hard. It's really hard.
Patience and trust. Truth,
Patience isn't really it.
No, you're
Well,
right.
judgment's not on there either because it's something we do, I think, based on these things. So maybe the tolerance is how much we have based on
I want
combo.
to look at something. I want to see if Alan Marinis, because this is the classical list. I want to see if Alan Marinis in his modern one adds it. No, he doesn't.
And is tolerance
Rabbi?
a virtue? I don't think so. What
An
about
honor?
what about
Honor.
tolerating?
Honor includes judgmental behavior.
Okay, and Susan, did you want to make a comment?
Yes. Some people think it's wrong to judge. And we were given that privilege to determine right from wrong. And tolerance for bad behavior is not necessarily a virtue.
Right.
Good.
So it may not belong on this list. I mean, it's a current contemporary kind of value that we have to tolerate this and that, but it's not necessarily a virtue.
Think about tolerance.
Brett?
I mean,
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. I can.
Susan, it's Miriam. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I just wanted to add, may I say something?
Please
Sure.
do.
Okay. First of all, this would not be my personal order. I'm not going to talk about myself or rate myself. The ratings will be too low and it will make me depressed because they'll all be very low. But I don't know, first of all, about the order that this was put in. Is this the rabbi's personal order of what he thought the most
There's no
important?
order, Miriam, because it's just a list and then you make the order for yourself.
Okay, then with the person, I forgot who introduced the word tolerance.
Cheryl.
With Cheryl. Thank you for doing that. I think tolerance is a very, very important trait that everyone should own. The word empathy is not here. To me, the word empathy really does inform our very life, our very thinking, and therefore tolerance and empathy go together. Not tolerance in the way that Susan said it. You should tolerate bad behavior, but to be tolerant to everyone and make you say, I am them, they are me, stops you from being judgmental in a negative way.
Well, I agree with you. I think, but chesed, which is loving kindness on here, is empathy.
It's part of that.
And tolerance, if that kind of tolerance is truth, I accept your truth. You're different from I am racially, in your gender, in your sexual orientation, in your country and beliefs, that you have your truth, I have mine. I think that tolerance maybe could be found in that, recognizing that we don't all have the same truths.
Yes, and just one more thing, excuse me. We don't have to stand on a pedestal, decide to look down on people and say, okay, I think we'll tolerate you.
No.
Because that would not be empathetic enough.
No, that's not respect. Okay.
That's exactly right.
Abby, and then I want to go to the practices.
Rabbi?
More or less the buzzword now in psychology is resilience.
Resilience. That's a good word.
And I've done it. I've been going to grand rounds, get my CEU units, and there's been a lot of work about resilience and how important it is in all aspects of our life. And
I think you're right. Resilience. I guess part of that would be working on your fear and
it's
your
not
gratitude.
really that. It's really not.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's
really
not.
I mean, it's sort of because, yeah. I mean, I went to a really incredible. I can send you the stuff on resilience. It's
You
really
know,
amazing.
I don't see why any of us couldn't add other soul traits to the list, because the practice is the same for whatever you're going to work on. So if you have the Don, are you there? Yeah. If you could put up now the list of the practices, or if you don't, they develop. It's not like you just said, okay, I'm going to work on this. And then how do you work on it? No, the Musar had a list of different things. Okay, down a little bit. So one was text study in terms of also, no, go down, Don. I want to see all the things in bold. I'll go up, I guess I'm saying. There we go, stop. So these are different things that the Musar movement says you need to do. There are three main ones that I'm going to talk about, but there were different movements of Musar, and these are all the possibilities. Now, text study it works if you're, a scholar and you're really studying Torah every week, or you're studying Pirkei Avot, that could work. But meditation, and chanting are pretty, forward thinking for back then. And what you chant or you contemplate is some kind of quote or thought, or you sing a nigun to yourself every morning to sort of just get your mind in a peaceful place, or you chant a special saying. And a Kabbalist once told me that the most powerful chant is in Hebrew, Elohai Neshama Shemata Bi Tahorahi, which means, God, the soul that you gave me is pure. Or just saying the soul is pure, you are pure. But I've heard from this Kabbalist, if you chant, and I could record this for you or whatever, but he sang it to me in a chant. He said, Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tahorahi. Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tahorahi. Over and over and over, he said it elevates you. It creates holy sparks. It lifts you. It connects you to your soul. But chanting something that has meaning to you is one of the ways to work on yourself, on your soul. Another thing is thinking about what you want to do. I want to be patient. I'm going to be patient. How can I be patient? I cannot be angry when I'm in the car. I can count to 10 before I respond or whatever. And then visualize yourself being patient. I see myself in the car. I see myself in traffic. You laugh, but they talk about how you have to train your thoughts and your soul to the change. And you can do it by this. And then there's visual tzedakah, giving good deeds, saying, I'm giving this in the name of patience. You're not just giving it, but you're saying, I'm giving this in the name of strengthening my patience. I'm hoping that I'll become more patient. Amen. Or helping somebody else, saying, I'm doing this to work on, it doesn't have to be a patient act, but just doing this. But the way that you do it, you start is you pick one thing, like patience. You get up in the morning and you think about it. You focus on it and you use a phrase about patience. Patient, today I will be patient and loving to everyone. or you say something in Hebrew, or you chant the one I gave you. Then during the day, you set it for yourself. Today, I'm going to be patient. You set it, and then during the day, you observe yourself, or you assign yourself what's called a Kabbalah, and you say, today I'm going to be patient 3 times, and you try to fulfill it. You set out a goal for yourself. Or if you're it's generosity. Today I'm going to be generous with my feelings. I'm going to be generous with my money. I'm going to be generous with some of my stuff. I'm not going to be so stingy. So you set it up, you try to do it, and then that night you journal and you write down patience or generosity and how did you do? Because you're not going to do it. It's going to take and they say you should work on it for 1 or 2 weeks and then move on. And you'll come back to it 13, midot or 14 midot later. You just work on it every day for 2 weeks. And, I think it's interesting that the rabbis said 2 weeks, because isn't it 2 weeks it takes to learn a new behavior psychologically? Isn't that what we've learned? It takes children 2 weeks to learn something new.
3 weeks.
So and if you say, okay, well, I didn't do so well, so I'm going to visualize myself being it. And you just work on it each day. You don't just say you're going to do it, but you set yourself goals. And this is how you improve yourself slowly, one quality at a time. Okay, Don, would you put back the gallery, please, so I could see everyone? So does anyone want to comment or talk about anything that we talked about or have any questions? This is just such a basic beginning of Musar. Now, I know that Jeff mentioned this to me in an email. Between Pesach and Shavuot, which is next week, by the way, we count the Omer every day, which is we count these little, it used to be that the people would bring these little offerings of wheat to the temple every day, and they were called the Omer. And you're counting the days and the weeks until Shavuot. Shavuot is the holiday, for those who may not remember, when we received the 10 Commandments. And according to the rabbis, from the Exodus until the getting of the 10 Commandments was 50 days, 7 weeks. And during those 7 weeks, you also work on different traits. You work on your qualities more toward they're Kabbalistic traits, but they're similar. And you work again on yourself every day for those 49 days in a similar way. So this idea of Musar is also Kabbalistic and practical. So again,
Can I say something, Susan?
Of course.
So I've been doing that for about 3 years, the counting of the Omer. I found it really interesting. But this practice that you just talked about, Musar, I think it's a lot deeper because you take a lot more time. I mean, it's lovely, every day for 49 days, whatever, you have this spiritual exercise.
Right.
But, for 24 hours is just not enough.
I agree with you.
To cultivate, much of anything as far as an ongoing practice or an ongoing habit, or an ongoing,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, the rabbis felt this was so important that they, put it in their studies for their students every single day. We worked on this. And this book, he has chapter on each soul trait, and examples and stories and suggestions of how to practice each soul trait. And then at the end, again, it's a similar list of what to do for Musar. It would be a great course to do for a whole year. We could work each week, study each week a different quality. But this is I thought most people never even heard of Musar. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yeah. What was the word that you used to describe the shadow?
Yetzer hara.
How do you spell that?
Okay. Yetzer and hara, HA, dash RA. Ha means the evil or the bad inclination, your bad appetite, your bad desire, your dark desire is what thwarts you when you're trying to be better. We all know about that. Any other questions or comments about?
And there's a Yetzer HaTov as
Yes.
well.
You want to talk about that?
Do I want to? No, I mean, just wanted to say as a complimentary, it's the good inclination.
The good inclination, exactly. But
didn't the good inclination come much later?
I think they were at the same. They said
I don't
they were
know,
the
to be
same
honest.
Yeah, Yetzer Hara comes first, and then much later in our history, the rabbis gave us Yetzer HaTov.
How do you spell that one? The good.
They're the same.
The good.
And
The
then
good.
good is HA-TOV. Yetzer means inclination
Got it.
or
Yeah, that's
desire.
Susan, may I add something, dear?
Yes, of course.
Susan?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Yetzer Hara, and as Bob wants to know about it, is so interesting because in the Pirkei Avot, as I remember, they devote a whole sentence to that. Who is the strong one? Ezehu Hagibor. Who is the strong man? He who conquers is Yetzer Hara. The man who is able to subdue and conquer his bad inclination.
And inclination, because it's always there. And I just want to end with, did anybody else want to say something?
Yes, I did.
Cheryl.
I just find it so interesting. Our culture is so consumed with self-help books. It's just, every hour it feels like a new one. And that this is so old, 1,000 years old practice. It's like the original. And that man's desire for improvement is really extraordinary, especially in these times where it doesn't feel that way always to me, is that it's just extraordinary how much the soul yearns to just keep polishing itself and keep alive and expansive. I just find it 1,000-year-old practice of a self. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, you are. It is amazing.
Very
It's
inspiring.
It's wonder. It's like, it makes us full of wonder and at the wisdom of, our sages, and also how humanity is the same. And I also love that they did a spiritual overlay on it, saying that it's not just for you. Remember that it's for the world. When you do this, you're making yourself better in order to bring light to the world. So I love that it's not only about I'm going to be happier, but I'm going to, if we have practiced these soul traits, we're going to really shine light wherever we are among the people. I want to conclude with a little Hasidic story that's one of my favorite stories. It was about a very wealthy man who came to a famous rabbi. He was the disciple of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement. And he said, "Rabbi, I understand how we can bless God when things are good, but how do we bless God when things are bad? I don't understand how you can do that. I mean, how can we have gratitude and recognize the good when things are so terrible?" And the rabbi said, "You have to go and see my brother-in-law, Rabbi Zusia. He's across town." So the rich man went over to Rabbi Zusia and he knocks on the door, and it's this poor ramshackle house. He opens the door and Zusia's wearing very shabby clothes. He's got pretty terrible furniture, and he says, "Oh, hello, come in." And he says, "Your brother-in-law, the great rabbi, sent me, and I wanted to ask." He says, "Well, I can offer you a glass of water. I don't really have any food right now." And he said, "Well, your brother-in-law, the great rabbi, sent me to ask you, how do we bless God when things are bad? I understand it when things are good, but how do we bless God when things are bad? I mean," and he was looking around this house thinking he's going to get a wise answer. And Rabbi Zusia said, "That's a very good question, my friend, but I really don't understand why he sent you to me. Why did he think I would have the answer?" In other words, we get it. He didn't think things were bad for him. His gratitude was on another level, or those were not his priorities, the things that for the rich man. So I guess, in this time, we can see the good, we can see the bad, and we can work on ourselves. So Thank you so much. Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
See
Shalom.
you.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
See you next
Shabbat
time.
shalom.